Hello and welcome to All Things Seniors. This is your host, Rafiq. I have over 20 years of caregiving experience, and on this channel, I empower other caregivers one episode at a time. So today, we are going to talk about the emotional roller coaster being a caregiver is. The role has a huge toll on our own emotions, and I will share some of the ways it affects us and some of the strategies over the years I have learned that has helped me, and I will share those with you today. The very first emotion that we take on ourselves, which has a huge toll, is guilt. No primary caregiver can say that, oh, I never feel guilt, because we do. We provide the best of care that's possible, but we still feel guilt that we are not doing enough. And that is very natural. That is very natural if you are a parent who are feeling that I'm not doing enough for my kids. And the same thing happens when we become primary caregiver for our loved ones, and we'll say, I think I'm not doing enough. But what is enough, right? Managing care for our loved ones along with our own life, like job, managing our own relationships, that's not easy. It is natural that when we are trying to balance many facets of our life, we feel that we are not doing justice to providing care for our loved one. And that's where guilt comes in. And I'll share a couple of thoughts with you towards the end as to how to manage that feeling. The next one is frustration. Because what also happens that when we are doing our best to provide care and feeling guilt, there are other factors like maybe a sibling or a neighbor, that judgmental stare that a family member gives you, or even the loved one not appreciating how much effort you are putting in, and you hear them bad-mouthing you. You are walking into the room and you hear your mom over the phone talking to her sister, or a neighbor saying, yeah, my daughter, she doesn't do much for me. Well, you know that you are doing your best, and that's where frustration comes in, that whatever I'm doing is not enough. So first comes guilt, frustration comes in because of external factors, and both these emotions have a huge toll on our health, our mental health, on our physical health, and we'll talk about how to take care of them shortly. The third emotion that we often feel is we feel isolated. We feel forgotten. Sometimes I don't even remember that last time when I went and played a billiard game or went out to watch a game with my friends. Slowly and gradually, I have now reached a point in my caregiving journey where I have found that balance. I will share some strategies with you. But as a primary caregiver, I'm sure you sometimes feel that what happened to my life? The only life that I'm living is the life of a caregiver. And I think it is extremely important that we come out of that only one factor of our life and have a wholesome life. Being a caregiver should be one factor of your life, not the entire life, and we'll talk about how to achieve that shortly. One more emotion that we primary caregivers sometimes face is when we see our loved one changing in a big way, whether it's because of dementia or whether it's because of the physical ailments and them not being able to be themselves. We see a different person. Like if I give you an example of my father and I used to watch a game together, or we would go out and maybe enjoy a walk together, or a day of shopping, or a day in a restaurant. And that person, that father of mine was a different person. The person with whom I'm living today is my father. But that person, like the person from 10 years ago, I think I've lost him, right? And many a times we feel that loss of a loved one when actually the loved one is still alive, but we feel that loss. But I want to remind you that, imagine, for example, you had your own child or a niece or a nephew. If you don't have kids, imagine when your niece or nephew or your kids were 3 years old. That was a good time, like a lot of giggles and games, and they already had a sleep routine, the school responsibilities were like that was a very golden time, right? And now, for example, that kid is in early teens, right? A lot of tantrums. You have to keep an eye on what they are doing, whether they have technology breaks, different kinds of responsibility, and you miss that 3-year-old person. But that doesn't mean that we cannot have a relationship with this new person. So I highly encourage you to do not feel that loss, and remember that you still have your loved one, just like you still have your kid, but it's a different person and it has to be a different relationship. And there are days when we miss that older, like that old version of our loved one. Come out of it, right? Like try to, and then make this new relationship, this new bond with this evolving person, because we are also changing, right? And it's very natural. So we need to learn to slowly come out of that grief of losing somebody where they're still alive, and continue to make this new relationship with this alive person. So let me take a quick pause here of these new emotions and share a couple of thoughts as to how we can take off guilt, how we can take care of the frustration, how we can take care of our own isolation. I'll share some tips with you. But if you're liking this content, like this episode, share this channel, because what YouTube will say, okay, this is a caregiver watching this episode, liking it. Let me show it to other caregivers as well, and that way we'll be able to help more caregivers around the world. So please do that. Okay, so in this segment now, I'll share some tips with you. The very first tip which I want you to remember is regarding guilt and frustration. There will be these emotions, they will often rush back. Your ears will burn, your face will turn red, because whether it's frustration or guilt, huge emotional toll on your presence at that time. And the very first thing that we can do is to forgive ourselves. Don't be too hard on yourself. You will never be able to do everything every time, right? We can do a lot of things, but not everything every time. So if you see, for example, from a guilt perspective, there are days when you say, geez, I don't feel like that I'm doing enough. You know what? No, you are. You are. Ask yourself that how much time you are giving for care for others, and how much time you are giving for care for yourself. And if you tell me, yes, I'm giving 5 hours of care to yourself, you have already watched a full movie, you're enjoying your outdoor walk while listening to your music, and you have not done enough for your loved one, yeah, sure, time to self-reflect and self-check, sure, make that change. But I can assure you, most caregivers are not even giving 10% of the time they give to their loved one to themselves. They would often remember the medication reminders for the loved one. They'll warm the food and have everything ready for the loved one. The laundry is done for the loved one. Everything is done for the loved one. And you asked the primary caregiver, when did you last had a good full night of sleep? They won't remember. When did you go out watching a movie with your friends? They won't remember. So stop that guilt spiral. Have a good balance in your life. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself that I'm not doing enough, or the frustration that comes on when somebody gives you a stare from the family. Nobody understands your journey. You understand your journey. You are taking care of them. Take care of yourself. You will not be able to pour from an empty vessel. You need self-care. So that's my tip number 1. My tip number 2 is, as much as your loved one is now a changing person, and there will be times when you can't even recognize who this new person is, right? But in between those days of newness, there will be smaller episodes of the deep connection, right? Like I know that many times as a primary caregiver, I struggle, right? My dad is in his own zone, right? Like even in a moment of discussion as a family where we are having a deep discussion, or it's a somber moment, but my dad in his own zone, he's always been a person who has enjoyed making funny comments, or he likes that style of conversation. And now he would not appreciate that he won't read the room, right? So he would be in between a discussion where we are discussing somebody's ailment, and he would pass a comment which in his mind is funny. And I need to remember that it's a different person, and that happens a lot. But in between those episodes, let's say when we are driving somewhere and he held my hand because he's sitting next to me in the front of the car, or while we are eating and he's looking at me just as if he's looking at his young son, right? And those few seconds of connection, we need to savor. We need to savor those connections and remind ourselves that that's the bond, that's the love for which we do all that hard work of being a primary caregiver. So do savor those moments. Do remind yourself that your loved one is still there. And I think that's extremely important. And the last one I would say is, people will always have feedback or comments or suggestions. Now, they don't know what you go through. They don't know the sacrifices that you have made. They don't know the emotions that comes out when, despite of all your hard work, you see that your loved one is not appreciating it or not being accepting of the love and care that you are providing. Others don't see that. So when somebody gives you a suggestion, I want you to remember this sentence. Instead of going into an argumentative, almost confrontation, you don't know what you are doing. No, I would say don't go there. Remember one sentence. This is your rope to come out of those difficult situations. The rope is, great point. Thank you. I'll see how I can incorporate that into my dad's care. Right? Again, thank you. Wonderful. Thanks for the suggestion. I will see how I can incorporate this into my dad's care. And see whatever is the good version that you can use for yourself. But the point is, have a neutralizing sentence that memorize it. You don't have to take people's comments seriously. You don't even have to process them, honestly. If somebody is giving a really out-of-box idea, great, use it, implement it. But most people, not knowing, will have superficial ideas, what they have read somewhere, and they've never implemented it, right? For most people, caregiving is just a novel idea which they've only seen in movies or heard about it, and they still want to, share their wisdom, right, without ever implementing. For those people, have this sentence always read. Great, thanks for sharing. I will see how I can incorporate that into my dad's care. Remember this so that you don't go into this difficult conversations. People will give you ideas, listen to them. Most of them don't process and just come out of that situation using this one phrase. But you know what? Never underestimate the importance of respite. When we do so much work as primary caregivers, we need to refill our vessel, right? So have, whether your sibling or a hired help or a neighbor, have a backup line every week, every 10 days, whatever is your routine, I don't know. But apply that respite into your schedule to have that one day, one half a day, one weekend, whatever you can accommodate, to go out and spend time the way you would like. You maybe go for a hike or go for a 2-day visit or travel somewhere. Go on a date with your wife or your friends. Whatever that is, you need to self-care and refill your vessel so that you can come back and then provide even better care for your loved one. You know what? In the comments, please do write what works for you. Something that really works for you and I have not addressed. I would love to learn from you. I'm sure other viewers would love to learn from you. So please do write in the comments. And in the end, as I always say, do take care of yourself, because a rested caregiver is a better caregiver. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you next week. Ciao.